Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into your research on chronic pain and fasting. You've given us a really interesting mix here. We've got medical articles, personal stories, even some Islamic scripture. Looks like you're trying to understand if fasting could help manage chronic pain, and we're going to explore both the scientific and personal sides of this question.
It's a fascinating area, and it's clear you've been doing some serious research here.
Okay, so let's start by defining exactly what we're dealing with. What is chronic pain and how is it different from, just everyday aches and pains we all experience?
It's a great place to start. I mean, we tend to think of pain as a simple alarm system.
Right.
You get a cut, it hurts, you know something's wrong. That's what we call acute pain. It's short-lived, and it's usually tied to a specific injury. But chronic pain, it's different. It persists for weeks, months, even years, often long after an injury is healed. And it's not just about time, it's about what's happening in your nervous system.
Wait, what do you mean happening in your nervous system?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, with chronic pain, those pain signals keep firing, even when there's no longer a direct threat. So it's like your body gets stuck in this pain loop. And the key here to understanding this is a concept called neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to change and adapt. With chronic pain, the neural pathways associated with pain, those become strengthened. So it makes you more sensitive to even minor stimuli. It's like the volume knob on pain is turned way up.
So it's not just that the injury hasn't healed, it's that the brain itself is changing how it processes pain.
Exactly, and that's why chronic pain is so complex. It's not just physical, it's neurological too.
That makes chronic pain seem even more, formidable.
It is a serious condition, and it impacts far more than just the body, right? You've included some sources here that highlight the psychological effects. Anxiety, depression, difficulty sleeping. It's a vicious cycle. The pain feeds the emotional distress, which in turn amplifies the pain.
And there's also the chronic pain syndrome. Could you talk a little bit about that and how it differs from chronic pain?
Yeah. Chronic pain syndrome is when this cycle, this vicious cycle we're talking about, becomes really entrenched. It's more than just persistent pain. It significantly impacts your daily life, your ability to work, to socialize. The severity of both the physical and the psychological symptoms is much greater. Imagine, for example, someone with back pain. It's so severe that it prevents them from working or socializing, and that can lead to depression and isolation. This is the reality for many people. Chronic pain syndrome requires a multidisciplinary approach to treatment, addressing both the physical and the psychological aspects.
It's heartbreaking to think about how much this can affect someone's life. And it's clear from the personal accounts you've included that this is more than just an abstract concept. Chronic pain touches every aspect of a person's life.
Absolutely. It affects relationships, work, hobbies. Even simple daily tasks can be a struggle. It's a heavy burden.
Okay, so that brings us to the heart of your research, fasting. What are we hoping to learn about how fasting might be connected to all of this?
Well, your sources point to some pretty intriguing possibilities. One key idea is detoxification. Fasting could act as a reset button for your body, allowing your body to cleanse itself and potentially reduce inflammation, which is often, a root cause of pain.
Can you say more about that? Like, how does fasting actually reduce inflammation?
Well, it's connected to several mechanisms. One of the most fascinating is a process called autophagy.
Autophagy.
It might sound complicated, but it's really quite simple. It's essentially your body's internal recycling system. When you fast, your cells start to clean house, essentially. They break down old and damaged components and recycle them into new building blocks. It's like decluttering on a cellular level.
So by getting rid of all the cellular junk, we're reducing inflammation and, in turn, potentially reducing pain.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. Your research also points to another interesting factor, insulin sensitivity.
Wait, insulin, doesn't that have to do with blood sugar?
Yes, but it plays a surprising role in pain perception as well. Some research suggests that improving insulin sensitivity through fasting could actually dampen pain signals. It's complicated, but essentially it seems that better insulin regulation can actually help modulate how the nervous system responds to pain.
That is fascinating. I never would have thought of that. What else did you find in your research?
Well, some of the sources mention improved mood and even nerve cell regeneration. When you consider the far-reaching effects of chronic pain, the anxiety, the depression, it's clear that addressing the mental and emotional aspects is as important as addressing the physical.
It's like fasting is addressing pain from multiple angles. But, we need to be cautious, right? This all sounds promising. But it's not a magic bullet, is it?
You're absolutely right. It's crucial to remember these are potential benefits, not guaranteed outcomes. More research is needed to fully understand the relationship between fasting and chronic pain relief. And anyone considering fasting should consult with their doctor, especially if they have any other health conditions.
Yeah, safety first, especially when we're talking about something that affects our health.
Exactly. It's about taking a thoughtful and informed approach, working with your doctor to make the best decisions for your individual needs.
Okay, so we've got detoxification, insulin sensitivity, mood boost, nerve regeneration. There's a lot to think about there. But you've also included a surprising amount of information on honey.
Now that's where things get really interesting. It seems you've been exploring honey's potential beyond its role as just a sweetener.
Yes. You know, you've included quite a bit about honey and its benefits for pain and inflammation. Can you tell us a bit more about what you found?
Well, honey has been used medicinally for centuries, and there's growing research backing up that traditional use. Your sources highlight its potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, which, as we've discussed, could play a significant role in pain management.
So it's like adding another layer of defense against inflammation alongside the benefits of fasting.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that some of your research even suggests that honey might be more effective than conventional antibiotics in certain cases, especially when it comes to wound healing and infection control.
Wait, really? Honey outperforming antibiotics? That's a bold claim.
It is. More research is definitely needed. But some studies indicate that honey's unique composition, with its natural enzymes and antibacterial properties, might give it an edge in certain situations. It's a reminder that nature often holds this powerful healing potential that we're just beginning to understand.
Okay, so we've got this intriguing combination of fasting with its potential to reset the body and reduce inflammation, and honey with its own set of healing properties. But, you've also included something very personal in your research, your own journey with chronic pain and fasting.
Ah, yes, that's right. Your own experience adds a really valuable layer to this deep dive.
It's one thing to read about potential benefits, but it's quite another to see how they actually play out in someone's life. It adds a human element.
Absolutely. And while it's just one individual's experience, it offers valuable insight into how these concepts can be applied in the real world.
So can you tell us a bit about what you learned from this personal account? What kind of chronic pain was this individual dealing with?
Well, they describe experiencing chronic pain for quite some time, and it sounds like it really impacted their life, their ability to do everyday things. They decided to try fasting as a way to manage this pain, and they outline their specific regimen in detail.
What kind of fasting regimen did they follow? And did they mention any specific benefits?
They actually followed a 168 intermittent fasting regimen, the one where you fast for 16 hours and have an 8-hour eating window each day. They reported It's important to remember, though, that everyone's journey with chronic pain is unique. What works for one person may not work for another. It's about finding what works for you and for your body.
It's about personalized experimentation, working with your healthcare provider to find the approach that best suits your individual needs.
Exactly. And this person's story also highlights something else that's important: the mind-body connection. They talk about how fasting not only helped them physically, but also brought a sense of mental clarity, even spiritual peace, which likely contributed to their improvement.
Yeah. It's a reminder that healing is not just about the physical body. It's about nurturing the whole person, mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. And speaking of the spiritual dimension, you also included a verse from the Quran and a hadith in your research.
Yes, I was really intrigued by that. It seems you're interested in exploring the spiritual dimension of healing alongside the scientific and personal.
Yeah, it's fascinating how your research blends these different perspectives. It really speaks to the multifaceted nature of pain and the different paths to healing.
So let's talk about that spiritual aspect a bit more. Can you tell us about the verse from the Quran that you included?
It's from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 155. And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient.
That's beautiful. It speaks to the, inevitability of challenges in life and the importance of finding strength and resilience in the face of adversity. How does this relate to chronic pain and suffering?
Well, it acknowledges that pain and suffering are part of the human experience. It doesn't shy away from that. But it offers this message of hope. Give good tidings to the patient. It suggests that there's a reward for those who endure with patience and faith.
It's about finding meaning and purpose, even in the midst of suffering, right? About trusting that even in the darkest times, there's a light.
Exactly. It's about cultivating resilience, knowing that challenges are not meant to break us, but to help us grow.
And you also included a hadith about pain and suffering. Can you share that with us?
The Hadith states, no fatigue, no disease, no sorrow, no sadness, no hurt, no distress befalls a Muslim, even if it were the prick he receives from a thorn, but that Allah expiates some of his sins for that.
That's powerful. It suggests that even the smallest pains can have this redemptive quality, that they can serve as a means of purification and spiritual growth.
Exactly. It's about reframing our understanding of pain, seeing it not simply as a negative experience, but as a potential opportunity for spiritual refinement.
I love how this spiritual perspective adds another layer of meaning to our exploration of chronic pain and healing. It's a reminder that we can find strength and solace in our faith, even when we're facing physical and emotional challenges. Now, shifting gears a bit, you've also included information specifically on cancer pain.
Yes, it appears you're interested in how fasting might play a role in managing cancer pain, which is often a significant challenge.
Before we jump into that, can you give us a little background on cancer pain itself? What makes it so unique and challenging?
Sure. Cancer pain can arise from a number of factors. The tumor itself pressing on nerves or organs, side effects of treatments like chemotherapy or radiation, and even just the emotional distress that comes with a cancer diagnosis. It's often described as a multidimensional experience, encompassing physical, emotional, and even spiritual suffering.
So it's not just one type of pain, it's a whole, constellation of experiences that can vary greatly from person to person.
Exactly. And this complexity makes it incredibly challenging to treat. Managing cancer pain often requires a multifaceted approach, involving medications, therapies, and lifestyle modifications. It's really tailored to the individual's needs.
Okay, so we've got this complex picture of cancer pain, and now we're bringing fasting into the equation. What does the research say about its potential role?
Well, it's important to note that the research in this area is still emerging, but some intriguing findings suggest that fasting could play a role in both cancer treatment and pain management.
Could. So we're not talking about a guaranteed cure or anything like that.
Right. It's important to be cautious and avoid making promises. But some studies have shown that fasting might enhance the effectiveness of certain cancer treatments, like chemotherapy, and it may even reduce the severity of side effects, including pain.
That's fascinating. How does that work? What's the thinking behind it?
One theory is that fasting can stress cancer cells, making them more vulnerable to treatments. It's almost like giving the treatments a boost.
Wow. So fasting is potentially working on two fronts, enhancing the treatment and potentially reducing pain. Are there any risks associated with fasting for someone with cancer?
That's a crucial question. And it underscores why it's so important to talk to your doctor before making any changes to your diet or treatment plan, especially if you have cancer. Fasting can be challenging, and for someone already weakened by illness or undergoing treatments, it can be risky.
So it's about carefully weighing those potential benefits against the risks and having that conversation with your healthcare team to make sure you're making informed decisions.
Exactly. It's a personalized decision that should always be made with the guidance of a qualified healthcare professional.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the nature of chronic pain, the potential benefits of fasting and honey. We've talked about someone's personal journey with chronic pain and fasting, and even touched on the spiritual dimension of pain and healing.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Welcome back to our deep dive on chronic pain and fasting. Last time, we were talking about the potential benefits of fasting, especially how it might reduce inflammation.
Yes, we discussed some fascinating stuff. Autophagy, insulin sensitivity, the whole mind-body connection. But I'm curious to go a little deeper into the science. How exactly does fasting trigger these changes in the body?
Well, one key player we haven't discussed in detail yet is ketones. Remember how we talked about how your body starts burning fat for energy when your glucose levels drop during fasting?
Yeah, I remember ketones being like a byproduct of that, but I'm not really sure what they are or what role they play. Okay, so imagine your body has a backup generator that kicks in when its usual fuel source, glucose, runs low. That backup generator runs on ketones. And ketones are created from the breakdown of fat. And it turns out, ketones aren't just an alternative fuel source. They have some pretty remarkable properties that could be relevant to pain management.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Tell me more about these ketone superpowers.
For starters, ketones seem to have their own anti-inflammatory effects. They can actually help calm down the inflammatory processes that contribute to pain. It's like your body is creating its own natural pain reliever.
Wow, so it's not just about reducing inflammation through autophagy, that cellular cleaning process, but also through the production of these anti-inflammatory ketones.
Exactly. It's a two-pronged approach. And there's even evidence that ketones can protect nerve cells from damage, which is especially important when we're talking about chronic pain conditions that involve nerve dysfunction.
So we've got cellular cleanup through autophagy, natural anti-inflammatories in the form of ketones, and nerve protection. That's pretty powerful.
It is, and it really highlights the amazing ways our bodies can adapt and heal.
It's like fasting gives our bodies that nudge they need to activate these self-healing mechanisms. But, even with all this scientific evidence, fasting still seems to be, I don't know, a bit of a fringe topic when it comes to pain management. Why do you think that is?
Well, as we mentioned, more research is needed to fully understand the long-term effects of fasting and to develop, safe and effective protocols for different conditions. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and there are risks to consider, especially for people with certain health conditions.
Right. Safety first. We should emphasize that anyone considering fasting should really talk to their doctor first, just to make sure it's right for them.
Absolutely. But it's definitely an area that needs more research, and the early evidence is promising.
It is exciting to think about the possibilities. But even beyond these specific mechanisms of fasting, you've included a lot about the importance of a holistic approach to pain management. It's not just about addressing the physical symptoms, right?
You got it. Remember, chronic pain affects the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. A truly effective approach needs to address all of those aspects.
Okay, so what are some examples of these holistic practices that might be helpful?
Well, your research points to a whole range of approaches. Mindfulness meditation, gentle exercise, even acupuncture can all play a role.
I'm really intrigued by mindfulness meditation. I've tried it a little bit myself, but how might it be beneficial for someone with chronic pain?
Well, think about how often we get caught up in those stories we tell ourselves about our pain. This will never end, or I can't live like this. These thoughts just amplify the suffering. Mindfulness is about cultivating an awareness of those thoughts, those stories, without judgment. It's about creating space around the pain, allowing it to be there without letting it consume you.
So it's not about, pretending the pain isn't there or trying to make it go away. It's about changing how we relate to it.
Exactly. It's about becoming an observer of the pain rather than getting swept away by it. And that could be really powerful in terms of reducing suffering.
I can see how that would be helpful. It's like taking back some control. Even if you can't control the pain itself, you can control how you respond to it.
You got it. And it's not just about the mental and emotional well-being either. There are practices that can help physically. Your research also mentions gentle exercise.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's a misconception that if you're in pain, you should just rest and avoid any movement. But that's not always the best approach, is it?
Not at all. Of course, it's important to listen to your body and not do anything that makes the pain worse. But gentle exercise, like yoga, tai chi, even just walking, can help improve your flexibility, strength, and balance, all of which can be helpful for managing chronic pain.
I love the idea of finding ways to make your body that feel good and nourishing, rather than pushing yourself to the limit.
Exactly. It's about honoring your body and where it's at. And then there's acupuncture, which has been used for centuries in traditional Chinese medicine to address pain.
I've always been curious about acupuncture. I know it involves needles, but I don't really understand how it works. Can you explain?
Well, the idea behind acupuncture is that energy, or qi, flows through these pathways in the body. And when those pathways are blocked or imbalanced, it can lead to pain and illness. So acupuncture involves inserting these thin needles into specific points along these pathways to stimulate energy flow and restore balance.
So it's not about treating the pain directly. It's about addressing the underlying energy imbalances.
Exactly. And while we're still learning about exactly how acupuncture works, it's thought to involve the release of endorphins, our natural pain relievers, and it might also modulate nerve signals. It's generally considered a safe therapy, and it can be used alongside other approaches.
It sounds like it could be worth exploring, especially for those looking for alternative therapies.
And that's the key takeaway here, that there are so many different tools and approaches that can be helpful for managing chronic pain. And often the most effective approach is going to be a personalized combination of these different things.
It's about finding what works for you, what resonates with your body and your lifestyle.
You got it. And it's about empowering yourself to take an active role in your healing process, working with your healthcare providers to create a plan that meets your needs and goals.
Now, we touched on the spiritual dimension of healing earlier, And you mentioned that Islamic scripture offers some insights into pain and suffering. Could we talk a little bit more about that?
Of course. The Quran and Hadith offer a lot of wisdom on how to handle life's challenges, including pain. Remember the verse from Surah Al-Baqarah we talked about earlier? It emphasizes patience and resilience in the face of trials.
Yes. It's a great reminder that challenges are just a part of life, and how we respond to them is what really matters.
Exactly. And the Hadith you shared takes that perspective a step further, suggesting that pain can actually be a means of purification and spiritual growth. It encourages us to shift our focus away from seeing pain as only negative, to seeing its potential for transformation.
It's about finding meaning and purpose in the midst of suffering, about trusting that there's a higher purpose at play.
Exactly. It's not about just passively enduring pain. It's about actively seeking ways to grow and learn from it.
It's about transforming that pain into strength and wisdom.
You got it. And this ties into the idea of acceptance, which we talked about earlier. It's about acknowledging that pain is there, but without resistance or judgment. It's about making space for it without letting it define you.
I'm curious to explore this idea of acceptance a bit more. I think a lot of people struggle with it, especially if they've been dealing with chronic pain for a long time. How do you cultivate acceptance when you're in pain? It almost seems counterintuitive.
It is a practice, and it definitely takes time and patience.
Mhm.
It's not about giving up or saying that you're okay with a life of suffering. It's more about realizing that the pain is present, but not letting it run your life. It's shifting from a mindset of battling against the pain to one of coexisting with it.
So it's about making peace with the pain, acknowledging that it's there without letting it be in control.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly freeing. When you stop fighting the pain so much, you have more energy and resources to focus on the things that bring you joy and give your life meaning.
It's about shifting your focus from pain management to life management.
Yes. And this can involve all sorts of strategies, practicing mindfulness and gratitude, engaging in activities you enjoy and that give you a sense of purpose. It's about figuring out how to live a full life, even when pain is present.
Now, we've talked about this holistic approach, but are there any practical tips you can offer on incorporating fasting into daily life? It can seem a bit daunting, especially if you're new to it.
You're right, it can be. There are a lot of different approaches, and the important thing is to find what works for you, what you can actually sustain. And it's important to be safe. Let's start by clarifying some of the terms. You mentioned intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting, and prolonged fasting.
Yes, I've heard those terms, but I'm not totally clear on the differences.
Okay, let's break it down. Intermittent fasting involves cycling between eating and fasting within a 24-hour period. A popular method is the 168 approach, where you fast for 16 hours and eat during an 8-hour window.
Oh, so like skipping breakfast and having your first meal at noon and finishing dinner by 8 p.m.
Exactly. It's pretty simple, and a lot of people find it sustainable. Another common method is the 5.2 approach, where you eat normally 5 days a week and restrict your calories to around 500, 600 on 2 non-consecutive days.
Okay, got it. So that's intermittent fasting. What about alternate day fasting?
Alternate day fasting, as the name suggests, is alternating between days of complete fasting and days of eating normally.
Wow, so like a full 24 hours without food every other day. That seems intense.
Yeah, it is definitely more challenging, and it's not for everyone, especially those with certain health conditions or if you're totally new to fasting.
Right. You want to start slowly and pay attention to your body.
Exactly. And then we have prolonged fasting, which is fasting for more than 2 days.
Is that usually for weight loss?
While weight loss can be a side effect, prolonged fasting is more often done under medical supervision. For specific purposes like boosting the immune system or to enhance certain treatments.
Okay, so definitely not something to just try at home on your own.
Definitely not. Prolonged fasting can have significant effects on the body, and it's important to be cautious and have guidance from a healthcare professional.
So we've got this range of approaches, from intermittent fasting, which seems the most doable, to prolonged fasting, which is more advanced. How do you know which one is right for you?
That's a great question. The best approach really depends on your individual goals, lifestyle, and preferences. It's also important to consider any health conditions you have and to talk to your doctor to make sure you're choosing a safe approach.
So personalized experimentation, working with your doctor to find what works best.
Exactly. And you have to pay attention to how your body responds. If you're overly hungry, weak, experiencing headaches or dizziness, having trouble concentrating, those are all signs that you might need to adjust or that fasting might not be right for you.
It's about listening to your body and making adjustments as needed.
Exactly. And remember, fasting is not a quick fix. It's a tool that can be part of a holistic approach.
It's about creating a sustainable lifestyle, one that supports your overall health, both physically and mentally.
Exactly. It's about approaching this journey with curiosity, patience, and being open to experimenting.
Throughout our deep dive, you've emphasized the connection between our minds and bodies. We've talked about mindfulness, acceptance, and the role of our thoughts and beliefs in shaping our experience of pain. Can we explore this mind-body connection a bit further?
Absolutely. It's such an important part of chronic pain management that often gets overlooked. We tend to focus on the physical, but the truth is, our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs play a huge role in how we experience and cope with pain.
Yeah, it's easy to get so caught up in the physical sensations that we forget about the mental and emotional side of things.
Exactly. And one of the most common and often debilitating aspects of chronic pain is the feeling of isolation. It's hard to explain what you're going through to others, and it can feel like you're carrying this heavy burden alone.
I can only imagine how isolating that must feel, like you're trapped in your own body, unable to really participate in life the way you used to.
That's it. And that feeling of isolation can lead to this downward spiral of depression, anxiety, and hopelessness. It's so important to address this emotional side of chronic pain, just like we address the physical symptoms.
So how do we do that? How do we support ourselves and others who are going through this?
Well, one of the most important things is simply to listen, to create that space where people can share their experience openly and honestly without feeling like they need to downplay their pain.
It's so important to feel heard and validated, especially when you're dealing with something that's often invisible.
Absolutely. And beyond just listening, it's about offering practical support, helping with everyday tasks, providing transportation, or simply being a compassionate presence.
It's about showing up for people, not just with words, but with actions.
Exactly. And it's about encouraging them to seek professional help. Therapy, support groups, mindfulness practices can all be valuable tools.
It's about building a support network, personal and professional, to help navigate the journey.
Precisely. And remember, even small acts of kindness can make a difference. A phone call, a card, a listening ear. These gestures can really help.
It's about reminding people that they're not alone and that they're loved and cared for.
You said it beautifully. And it's about fostering a sense of hope. Hope that things can get better, that healing is possible, that life can still be meaningful and joyful even with pain.
That's such an important message of hope. Chronic pain can feel overwhelming and isolating, but it doesn't have to run your life. There are resources and tools out there that can help you reclaim your well-being.
Absolutely. And your research has highlighted some of those resources. You've got a lot of information here to guide you.
Speaking of guidance, earlier we talked about how Islamic scripture offers insights into pain and suffering. Can we come back to that for a minute?
Of course. It's so interesting how your research brings together scientific inquiry, personal experience, and spiritual reflection. It speaks to the many layers of pain and the different paths to healing.
It does. It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion. With each layer, there's more complexity.
And speaking of complexity, we've talked a lot about managing pain. But I wonder, what if we thought about pain transformation? What if we saw pain not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a teacher?
Whoa. Pain as a teacher. That's a really different way of thinking about it.
It is, but it could be really powerful. What if, instead of always fighting against the pain, we try to learn from it?
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of lessons can pain teach us?
Pain can be a profound teacher. It can teach us about our own resilience, our capacity to adapt and overcome. It can show us hidden strengths.
So even when we're feeling weak and vulnerable, pain can help us see the strength we have.
Exactly. It can also teach us about the importance of taking care of ourselves, honoring our bodies, listening to them, and respecting our limits. Pain might be urging us to slow down and tune in to our own wisdom.
It's like pain is a wake-up call to prioritize what's really important.
I love that. Pain can also teach compassion. When we experience pain ourselves, we understand suffering better, which can help us connect more deeply with others who are struggling.
So pain can open our hearts, allowing for deeper connection and understanding.
Yes. And there are also the lessons of gratitude that pain can teach. Living with chronic pain often makes you appreciate the simple things more. Things you might have taken for granted. A pain-free moment, a good night's sleep, being able to move easily.
It's about finding the good, even when things are hard. Shifting our focus from what we've lost to what we still have. And remembering that even when there's pain, there can still be joy, connection, meaning.
I love that. This whole idea of pain transformation is about recognizing that pain, while challenging, doesn't have to be the enemy. It can be a catalyst for growth, healing, and deeper self-awareness.
Instead of being consumed by the pain, we can actually use it to fuel positive change and understanding. But how do we do that in real life? How do you approach this transformation when you're in the middle of chronic pain?
Well, it's definitely not a quick fix. It's a process, a journey of self-discovery. But there are things that can help. Mindfulness meditation, practicing gratitude, even journaling can be powerful tools.
Those are all things we've talked about before. It's amazing how they all connect and support each other.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of our well-being, mind, body, and spirit. And it reminds us that we have more power than we realize.
It's about taking back some of that power, not by pretending the pain isn't there, but by learning from it and using it for good.
Exactly. It's about embracing the journey, acknowledging that there will be good days and bad days, and trusting that even in the tough times, there's potential for growth and healing.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I'm feeling really hopeful and inspired. Before we wrap up this section, there's one more area I wanted to touch on: the role of sleep. You included some research suggesting a strong link between sleep quality and pain levels.
Ah, yes, sleep. The foundation of well-being. It's so important for our health, and its connection to chronic pain is crucial.
Okay, tell me everything. What did you find in your research about this connection?
Well, first of all, chronic pain can really mess with your sleep. It can make it hard to fall asleep, stay asleep, or get that deep, restful sleep.
That makes sense. If you're in pain, it's hard to relax.
Exactly. And the problem is, not getting good sleep can actually make the pain worse. When you're sleep deprived, your body produces more of those inflammatory chemicals, which makes you more sensitive to pain. It's a vicious cycle.
So pain disrupts sleep, and poor sleep makes pain worse. It's like a double whammy. So how do you break the cycle? What can people do to get better sleep when they're dealing with pain?
The first thing is to make sure there isn't an underlying sleep disorder, like sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome. Treating those conditions can make a big difference in how well you sleep and how much pain you feel.
So talk to your doctor about any sleep issues you might have. Got it. What else can people do?
There are a lot of simple but effective lifestyle changes you can make.
Perfect. Give me all the tips.
Having a regular sleep schedule is really important. Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even on weekends. That helps regulate your body's natural sleep-wake rhythms.
So consistency is key.
Absolutely. Think about creating a relaxing bedtime routine, something to signal to your body that it's time to wind down. A warm bath, reading a book, listening to calming music, things like that.
I love that, a pre-sleep ritual.
It's a nice way to transition from the day to the night. And as tempting as it is, try to avoid screens for at least an hour before bed. That blue light from electronics can interfere with melatonin production, which helps you sleep.
I know. I need to be better about that.
We've all been there. Your sleep environment can also make a big difference.
What are some tips for creating a good sleep environment?
Make sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, and cool. Blackout curtains, earplugs, a white noise machine. All of those things can help. Think of it as creating a space for rest.
I love that imagery, a sleep sanctuary.
And remember, even small changes can add up. The key is to find what works for you and to do it consistently.
Better sleep, less pain. Seems like a win-win.
It is. And it's another great example of how this holistic approach, where you're addressing physical factors and lifestyle factors, can really help people manage chronic pain.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, honey. You included some research on its medicinal properties. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. Honey has a long history in traditional medicine, and modern science is starting to back up a lot of its benefits.
It's amazing how that ancient wisdom often gets validated by science, right? What makes honey so beneficial?
Well, honey is a complex substance with a lot going on inside. It's packed with antioxidants, enzymes, and antibacterial agents. It's been shown to have anti-inflammatory, wound healing, and immune-boosting properties.
Wow, honey is a powerhouse.
It is. And when it comes to chronic pain, those anti-inflammatory properties are really important. Inflammation drives a lot of chronic pain conditions, and honey can help reduce inflammation, both when applied to the skin and when you eat it.
So you can use it as a natural salve.
Exactly. And eating it can help reduce inflammation throughout the body. It's super versatile.
It's pretty amazing how nature provides these simple but powerful remedies. Are there any particular kinds of honey that are better for pain?
Some types of honey, like Manuka honey, have very high levels of antibacterial and anti-inflammatory compounds. It's becoming really popular. And while there's more research to be done, a lot of people find it helpful.
Manuka honey. I'll have to look for that. But regular honey is still good too, right?
Absolutely. It's delicious and you can enjoy it in so many ways.
I love adding a spoonful to my tea. It's a great natural sweetener, and you get all those nutrients and antioxidants.
It's a simple and tasty way to support your health.
I'm feeling really inspired to incorporate more honey into my diet, and I love how it ties into the holistic approach we've been talking about.
Yes, it's about bringing together different approaches and recognizing that there's no single answer. You have to find what works for you, what feels right for your body and your lifestyle.
And remembering that we're not alone on this journey. There are people who get it and who are there to support us.
That's so important. Connection and community can make all the difference. Sharing your story, seeking support, and supporting others can be incredibly healing.
We're all in this together, right?
Absolutely. And remember, even in the midst of pain and challenges, there's always the possibility for healing, growth, and transformation.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on chronic pain and fasting. We've covered so much, from the science behind fasting to the spiritual side of healing.
It really has been quite a journey. And last time, we were talking about how important community and connection are, especially when you're dealing with chronic pain, which can be so isolating.
Yes, and I think that leads perfectly into this idea of pain acceptance, which you mentioned in your research. It seems like it's really key to finding some peace and well-being, even when the pain is still there.
It is. But it's often misunderstood. Acceptance isn't about just giving up or resigning yourself to a life of suffering.
Right. I think when people hear acceptance, they might think it means you just give in to the pain and let it take over. But that's not what we're talking about, is it?
No, not at all. Acceptance here means acknowledging the reality of your experience without judgment or resistance. It's about making space for the pain, letting it be there, but not letting it control you.
So it's not about pretending it's not there, but more about how we relate to it.
Exactly. It's about shifting that relationship with pain from one of fighting against it to one of maybe even compassion.
Compassion for our pain, that's a new one.
It might sound strange, but when we resist the pain, when we're constantly fighting it, we often just make it worse. But when we approach it with curiosity and compassion, we can start to loosen its hold on us.
So instead of tensing up, we can learn to relax.
That's a great way to think about it. It's about recognizing that you are not your pain. You are a whole person, even with the pain.
It's a good reminder we're not defined by our pain. It's just one part of our experience.
Exactly. And acceptance doesn't mean you have to like the pain or pretend it's not there. It just means you acknowledge it without letting it run your life.
So it's about finding a way to live with it, rather than always being in a battle. But how do you actually do that? How do you cultivate acceptance, especially if you've been living with chronic pain for a long time?
It's a practice. It takes time and effort, just like you can train your body with exercise. You can train your mind with things like mindfulness meditation.
Mindfulness again. It seems like that keeps coming up. How does mindfulness help us accept pain?
Mindfulness is about paying attention to what's happening right now,
Yeah.
without judging it. You notice your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, even the pain. But you don't get carried away by them.
You become an observer, rather than getting lost in the story.
Exactly. And with practice, you start to see that pain isn't this solid, unchanging thing. It comes and goes. It changes.
We start to see that it's impermanent.
Yes. And that can be so freeing because it helps you see that the pain isn't this enemy you have to fight. It's just a sensation, a message.
It's about listening to that message rather than trying to shut it down.
And that's where all those other practices come in. The gentle exercise, the healthy food, the good sleep, they all help you create a better relationship with your body.
It's like we're putting together all these different pieces, the science, the ancient wisdom, the mindfulness to create a path to healing.
I love that image. And remember, healing isn't always a straight line. There will be good days and bad days, progress and setbacks.
It's about the journey
Yeah,
and being kind to ourselves along the way.
exactly. And it's so important to celebrate those little victories, those moments when you realize you're handling the pain differently, with more awareness, more acceptance, more compassion.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much.
It's been wonderful talking with you about this. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who understand and who want to help.
Thank you for that reminder. And to everyone listening, thanks for being here with us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some valuable information and maybe even some inspiration. Remember, even when there's pain, there's always hope.
and there's always potential for healing.
Until next time, take care.